What if I told you that the most powerful revenge isn't anger, confrontation, or revenge at all, but silence? In this video, we'll solve the problem of how to make someone feel guilty for hurting you, without saying a single word. Power, when exercised with subtlety, does not shout, it withdraws. The most devastating reply to injury is not the loud clatter of accusation, but the measured stillness that follows. Silence is an instrument, a blade honed not to wound the body but to pierce the conscience. When someone has wronged you, the immediate human urge is to answer, to reclaim, to return fire. That urge is emotional currency. Spending it is often the poorest economy. The truly strategic actor converts that impulse into a different resource: absence. Withdraw attention, withdraw reaction, withdraw the spectacle that fuels their sense of triumph. In doing so, you shift the theater altogether. You make absence the stage on which guilt can perform itself. Silence is not mere muteness. It is architecture. It is the design of emptiness, so that the wrongdoer's thoughts have no choice but to echo within themselves. When you do not react, they must confront an unexpected variable. Their expectation of drama is unmet. Human beings crave narrative closure. When they have committed a breach and expect outrage, the absence of outrage creates cognitive dissonance. That dissonance is corrosive. It will not vanish in a day. It will proliferate in small, gnawing questions. Was it nothing? Did I misjudge? Did I deserve this? Those questions are the seeds of guilt. Your silence plants them and retreats to let them take root. Silence converted into strategy requires discipline. It is not a passive retreat but an active choice governed by rules. First, refuse to dignify provocation with explanation. Explanations are theatrical props. They invite rebuttal and reanimate the combat. Second, calibrate visibility. Do not disappear into obscurity. Vanish just enough to be noticed as a deliberate absence. Vanishing without presence simply erases you. Vanishing with intermittent, composed visibility, appearing as unbothered, successful and unchanged, renders them the narrator of a failing story. Third, cultivate internal narrative. You must have a private ledger where the injury is acknowledged and where your response is measured. The ledger is your guide against impulsive return. Without it, silence becomes brittle and may shatter into unpredictable outbursts. Observe the psychology beneath the act. Guilt is a self-propelled engine. It requires a mirror to run efficiently. When the mirror is broken or removed, people search for reflections in other surfaces, rumors, memories, the reactions of others. Silence places that mirror inconveniently close to their face. The lack of your reaction forces them to look inward. The mind, left with time and space, undertakes the labor of accounting. Isolation from your approval, attention, or outrage compels them to inventory their conduct. Once someone begins that inventory unaided, you have ceded the role of prosecutor to their conscience. The internal prosecutor is relentless, ceaseless, and far more persuasive than any external accusation. There is strategic theater in what you withhold. A public scene of silence is different from private withdrawal. Public silence magnifies the social consequences of their action. It is one thing to hurt a person who shrugs it off. It is another to hurt someone who decides to respond by dignified silence in company, letting observers watch that dignity stand while the perpetrator is left to explain themselves. This form of silence is corrosive to reputation. People who witness a composed absence often reassess the offender because the social fabric requires cohesion and fairness. Their eyes become another layer of pressure. Your silence invites others to fill the narrative with sympathy for you and suspicion of the offender. Timing is the metronome of silent power. Too long and your absence can be misinterpreted as indifference. Too brief and it will seem reactive and therefore powerless. The interval must be long enough to unsettle, but not so long as to permit rumor or reinterpretation to take over the story. Calculated pauses, measured days, the measured withholding of commonplace niceties, the deliberate postponement of normal warmth, speak in a language that is unmistakable to a guilty mind. They translate into questions that cannot be answered by whim. Why did they withdraw? What consequence did my action have? Those questions are not rhetorical. They press a conscience into motion. Silence also allows you to reclaim agency. When you lash out, you hand over the script. Energy is spent engaging their narrative. When you keep silent, you write a new scene. The person who hurt you becomes the actor forced to interpret the blank stage you have left. Every attempt they make to reintegrate you, apologies, explanations, gifts, will now be compelled by the need to repair the gap their behavior created. That compulsion is a more authentic admission than any coerced confession. It is manufactured by their need to restore equilibrium where your absence created disequilibrium. Mastery of silence necessitates control of peripheral signals. Your body language, the tone of your occasional words, the serenity of your social presence. These are the instruments that accompany silence. A clenched jaw or a tremor undermines the message. A calm demeanor and an even gaze amplify it. Let your quiet be threaded with visible ease, not tortured melancholy. There is power in a smile that is not relief, but a measured recognition of the obvious. Let them see you living rather than languishing. Living well is a silent admonition that slowly gnaws at the perpetrator's certainty. Finally, remember that silence must be purposeful, not punitive for its own sake. The aim is to precipitate conscience, not to create an endless cycle of absence that consumes you. Use silence as a precise tool, to reveal their fault by withholding the expected reaction, to make their social and internal worlds unstable, and to generate authentic remorse from within, not from external coercion. In mastering silence, you do not merely punish, you transform the balance of moral ledger so that their guilt becomes the residue of their own reflection, and you, steady and unshaken, remain the architect of a quieter, sharper revenge. The most efficient revenge is to make another see themselves as they truly are, not through accusation, not through exposure, but through reflection. When you mirror the conscience of someone who has wronged you, you become the silent instrument of their moral realization. You present them with their own image, refined and magnified, until they can no longer escape the ugliness of what they've done. To mirror their conscience is to play upon the deepest law of the human mind, the craving to see itself as good. When you deny them that illusion, their peace collapses. To hold a mirror up to a guilty person, you must not speak of guilt. The moment you declare what they've done, you free them from reflection. They shift from introspection to defense. The human ego cannot bear a direct accusation. It transforms guilt into anger, shame into denial. Instead, you let them arrive at their own realization. This is the art of psychological warfare conducted under the disguise of peace. You let your silence, your posture, your withdrawn attention become the mirror they cannot look away from. Their mind will begin to project. They will interpret every calm word, every glance, as judgment. They will remember what they said, what they did, and in that remembering, you will not have spoken a single sentence. Your silence is the blank surface on which their conscience paints. You merely allow them to see what they have always carried within. The more they sense your composure, the more they question their own. They start imagining your thoughts, replaying the moment they caused the wound, and they begin to write your internal dialogue for you. That imagined dialogue will always be harsher than anything you could have spoken aloud. To mirror their conscience effectively, you must maintain an atmosphere of quiet decency. Do not gossip, do not demean them publicly. Maintain dignity so unwavering that it contrasts violently with their memory of their actions. When a person wrongs another, they subconsciously hope for a reaction that justifies their betrayal. They want the other to become emotional, unstable, vindictive, so that their conscience can whisper, "See, I was right to do what I did." But when you remain steady and unshaken, you leave them with no justification. The mind cannot reconcile the cruelty it inflicted with the calm grace it now confronts. That friction becomes guilt. The mirror grows sharper when you subtly echo their past behavior in harmless form. If they ignored you, you become politely unavailable. If they lied, you answer questions with polite brevity. If they disrespected your boundaries, you now enforce them with effortless firmness. You are not retaliating, you are reflecting. They begin to see themselves acted out by another, stripped of all their excuses. Reflection removes disguise. Once they see their own image in your restraint, the weight of what they've done starts to crush them in silence. Every gesture, every absence, every measured word becomes an instrument. The less you reveal, the more they imagine. Their imagination becomes your accomplice. They replay conversations that never happened. They explain themselves in their own mind 100 times. They become obsessed with defending themselves against an accusation you never voiced. That is the perfection of psychological control. You occupy their thoughts without uttering your name. Mirroring their conscience is not about forgiveness or confrontation. It is about transferring the burden of awareness back to where it belongs. You refuse to carry their guilt for them. You hand it back without words, by living in such contrast to their action that their own mind becomes judge and jury. You do not speak vengeance, you demonstrate integrity. In that quiet display, they see the moral standard they failed to uphold. That is the most elegant cruelty, forcing someone to measure themselves against the very virtue they betrayed. In the hierarchy of human interaction, emotion is both currency and weapon. To control it is to command the field of power. Those who hurt you seek reaction. They thrive on evidence that they still hold sway over your mood. Emotional control denies them that victory. It proclaims, without sound, that you have transcended their reach. To master emotion is to humiliate them without insult, to dominate them without confrontation. Emotional control is the throne from which quiet revenge rules. When someone strikes to wound your feelings, they do not seek your destruction, they seek your reaction. Your anger confirms that they matter. Your tears validate their importance. Every expression of pain feeds their sense of dominance. But when you absorb the blow and show nothing, you invert the hierarchy. You make them question their power. You stand where they expect collapse. That confusion is the seed of guilt. They sense something unnatural. You're calm. It unsettles them because it suggests that what they did, no matter how cruel, was insufficient to shake you. Their offense now diminishes in importance because you refuse to amplify it. Emotional control begins not with suppression, but with redirection. You allow emotion to exist but refuse it the right to speak. You acknowledge the storm privately and decide where it will go. Perhaps into art, achievement, or cold observation. You feed the energy to ambition rather than anger. By doing so, you make pain profitable, transmuting weakness into leverage. The mind of your offender cannot comprehend this transformation. They expect ruin and witness rebirth instead. Their satisfaction curdles into discomfort. In their silent comparison, they appear smaller. True emotional control does not announce itself. It is visible in posture, tone, and the serenity of timing. You answer messages slowly, speak evenly, and move deliberately. You allow no tremor to betray inner heat. Each moment of calm becomes a mirror in which they see their own lack of control. The guilty mind thrives on chaos. Your peace is its suffocation. They will begin to test you, to provoke emotion, to draw confession of pain. Do not give it. Each failed attempt deepens their unease. They start to feel the absurdity of fighting an opponent who refuses to swing. When control becomes consistent, superiority manifests naturally. It is the quiet authority of the unshaken. People are drawn to stability, and so the world begins to orbit you rather than them. That shift of attention wounds their pride. They see that their attempt to injure has made you appear stronger, wiser, more composed. Emotional control creates a hierarchy not of force but of dignity. The controlled person becomes the symbol of strength. The impulsive one becomes the spectacle of weakness. You use emotion strategically, not habitually. A measured smile can wound more deeply than anger. A delayed reply can echo louder than confrontation. To control emotion is not to be robotic but selective. You reveal fragments of feeling when it serves purpose. Enough to appear human, never enough to appear broken. In that equilibrium lies mastery. They will oscillate between admiration and shame, attraction and guilt, unable to define what you feel or what they mean to you anymore. That uncertainty is psychological subjugation. In the silent duel of power, the one who keeps composure wins. Every second of your calm is a reminder of their impulsiveness. Every moment of your poise is a reminder of their failure to provoke. Guilt thrives in contrast, and you provide it by remaining untouchable while they flounder in their own conscience. Emotional control is not absence of feeling, it is dominion over it. You no longer react. You dictate the tempo, and they follow in confusion, wondering when, if ever, they will regain the power they so carelessly spent. Absence punishes, but presence torments. To remain visible, calm, and self-contained is to haunt those who wronged you. You do not vanish, for disappearance frees them from the discomfort of remembering. Instead, you exist, radiant, indifferent, and untouchable. Your very presence becomes a reminder of their failure. Every time they see you unbothered, every time they hear your name spoken with respect, the wound inside them reopens. You have turned existence into a silent form of vengeance. Your presence must be transformed into an emblem of contrast. They expected you to collapse, to retreat, to plead. Instead, you appear as though improved by their betrayal. You speak less but with precision, you move with poise, and your energy carries no bitterness. This calm presence disorients them. It forces them to confront the possibility that they were never as significant as they imagined. The human ego suffers most not when hated, but when rendered irrelevant. Your composed visibility enforces that irrelevance like a verdict. Visibility is a delicate art. To overexpose yourself is to appear desperate. To vanish is to grant relief. You must find the perfect balance, close enough to be unavoidable, distant enough to remain mysterious. Appear in social spaces where your calm success can be observed but never offered as communication. Let your achievements speak while your words remain minimal. Every rumor of your contentment will sting them because it invalidates the imagined power they once held over your emotions. When you walk into a room, do so as though the past has evaporated. Greet others warmly, not them. Acknowledge them with civility, not warmth. This subtle distinction creates discomfort. They crave either hostility or reconciliation, something to read and respond to. You give neither. Your neutrality is the most painful presence because it offers no closure. It tells them that you have moved beyond them while they remain shackled to what they did. Presence as punishment is about rhythm. Appear, disappear, and reappear. Not erratically, but as if life continues effortlessly around you. The mind of the guilty cannot handle indifference. It needs drama to survive. When you exist in harmony with yourself, you become the embodiment of everything they lost, the peace they forfeited. They begin to experience your presence as a mirror of their decline. Every smile you give others, every moment you seem at ease, becomes a reminder of their moral imbalance. You must never attempt to explain your silence or your calmness. Explanation is submission. Presence must remain unspoken so that interpretation becomes their burden. They will imagine meanings where none exist. Was that glance forgiveness or accusation? Was that smile freedom or mockery? These uncertainties fester. They create inner noise that follows them long after you have left the room. That noise is the echo of guilt, the invisible whisper of retribution. In the game of perception, your image must become immaculate. Dress well. Speak rarely. Let every movement suggest purpose. The person who hurt you should see that their action has not diminished your stature but refined it. That vision alone is enough to breed torment. They realize that their attempt to damage has instead sculpted you into something formidable. Presence becomes poetry written in composure, and every verse reminds them that you are the consequence of their error. Power does not return through apology, it returns through narrative. Whoever defines the story owns the meaning of the past. When you have been hurt, you stand at a crossroads. Either live inside their version of events or rewrite the account in silence. To reclaim power, you must reconstruct the meaning of what happened. You do not deny the pain, you reinterpret it. You turn betrayal into awakening, loss into transformation, humiliation into proof of resilience. By doing so, you rob them of authorship. They may have written the act, but you write the aftermath. Reclaiming the narrative is an act of quiet rebellion. You begin by removing the emotional labels they imposed upon you. You are not the victim, you are the evidence of endurance. You do not speak of suffering, you demonstrate evolution. Every act of self-improvement, every new alliance, every moment of dignity is a revision of the record. The world watches, and the story subtly shifts. They no longer see you as someone broken, but as someone reborn. In that shift, the offender's image diminishes. Their cruelty now reads as catalyst rather than conquest. The key to redefining narrative lies in perception. Humans believe what they see repeated. You must therefore make your progress visible, not through boasts, but through consistency. Continue forward as if untouched. When questioned, speak of the past as if it were a distant lesson. Detachment reframes the story. What they meant as harm now appears trivial. What they considered victory now seems irrelevant. You have stolen the emotional gravity from their actions. Guilt thrives when power changes direction, when the perpetrator realizes that their blow built the very strength that now surpasses them. Your silence becomes the narrator. When you do not defend yourself, the world fills the silence with its own interpretation. People will notice that you are calm, productive, composed, while the other grows uneasy or defensive. Without your participation, public opinion often rearranges itself. The one who needs to justify becomes transparent. The one who remains dignified becomes credible. You have not spoken, yet you have won the argument. This is the refinement of power, the ability to control outcome without contesting in the arena. Redefining the narrative also means internal transformation. You must see yourself as separate from the injury, as author rather than subject. This inner posture radiates outward. Your energy changes tone, from wounded to sovereign. When they encounter you again, they sense this shift instantly. It is the look in your eyes, the steadiness of your voice, the serenity of someone who no longer needs explanation. They feel the reversal. You are no longer reacting to their story. They are now a footnote in yours. As you rebuild your identity, you must detach from the temptation of revenge as spectacle. Revenge performed is narrative trapped in the old script. The new narrative requires quiet confidence, progress, reinvention, refinement. You let the past become aesthetic, not burden. That transformation is what unsettles them most. They expected to see scars and instead see elegance. Their guilt grows in proportion to your serenity because you prove that their harm has lost meaning. They remain frozen in the past while you rewrite the future. Reclaiming the narrative is not denial but domination of interpretation. You take the fragments of pain and rearrange them into an architecture of strength. Every success, every peaceful gesture, every moment of poise is a sentence in that rewritten chronicle. They see it, they recognize it, and in that recognition, they are forced to confront the only truth left. They gave you the opportunity to rise. In redefining the story, you have turned their act into your creation, their cruelty into your evolution, their power into your history.